And we're live. Hey Ryan, how you doing this week? You alright? Let's see if we get anyone else in the chat yet. I'll give it a few minutes for people to show up because I just posted it on Twitter there. You want to help find your robotic girlfriend? Best of luck, mate. Can you hear me alright? If you can let me know if this is working, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Let's see. But what an episode this week. Got a lot to fit in. And I'm not going to cover everything because not everything in the episode was particularly great. But 99% of it was absolutely brilliant. Let's see. Just having a look at Twitter just now. Brilliant. Right, fantastic. It's working. There is a bit of a delay, so if there is a silence, it's just because I'm waiting for you to catch up. Or I'm having a drink as well. But what did you think about this week's episode, mate? Did you enjoy it, not enjoy it? Or what was your favourite part, I suppose, is a better question. Because it's so much to cover. I mean, I could probably do an entire hour or 2 hour stream just on the Demerzel ending and what that's going to mean. I've got a few well, I might do a video on that, we'll see. Matt, yeah, I'm going to talk about Callie and what I think might be going on there as well. Also about the whole live action Harry thing as well and how we might be back. Because I think this episode did hint at a few things with the way that certain people were shot and certain scenes were shot. I mentioned in that video that I done yesterday or last night about the many copies of Harry in the mirror in the vault, and I don't think the way that that was shot was entirely a coincidence. So hey Matt, hey Jay, hey New Jeans, welcome guys. I'm just going to take a quick 5 minutes and let people join the chat because I don't know where everyone is. That's a good question. Where are you? You don't have to, give me your exact address, but in the world, that'll do. Yeah, Matt, I think we're probably going to get a Demerzel flashback. Next episode 9, because I think 10 is obviously going to be the finale. They're not going to make an entire, or at least a good section of an episode a flashback if it's the last one. So Jay says, I think that's San Francisco, Jay. So it's probably what, about 1 in the afternoon, 2 in the afternoon where you are. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, the whole Demerzel thing completely changes the context of everything that she's done, and especially everything that she's said in the show up until now. So I'm going to go back, not watch every episode, but I'm going to skim the bits that she's in, especially I think it's the second episode from season 1 when she's talking to the original Cleon, because the context is matters, man. Like, yeah, I probably should have done that before the stream and watched that particular scene, but yeah, the context of what she says and what it could mean is now all changed. I mean, I think people knew, or at least a few people, a majority of people online seem to have some sort of idea that she was behind the Empire, but not to that degree. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions, like how does she repair herself? Because we've seen half her head missing in the first episode, and another one, who was behind the attack, stuff like that as well. Is she the only robot? I don't think that's probably the case. Although I don't think there's copies of her. I think she's the only Demerzel. But yeah, talking about like the way things are getting framed in the episode, or the season I should say, because they really have been focusing on the mural that every Dusk seems to love, and then they kind of, well, they did pay it off in that episode there this week, certainly. Yeah, I'm going to get to talking about Gale. I'm going to talk about Tellum as well. Got a few ideas on that. I've got to hold back some stuff, Matt. Otherwise, no one would watch my theory videos during the week. Because I'll be honest, last week's live stream went way better than I thought it was going to go, and I got way more viewers in the stream, and I got way more views after it than I ever expected. So, if you were here last week, absolutely fantastic. Thanks for that. And if you're new this week, welcome. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, you can do that. You can super chat if you want your question or your comment highlighted as well. But I think we'll give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get into it. Let's see. Oh, someone in from Chicago. What's Jay saying? I like the story with the clones is getting deeper and clarified enough that we can now start using specific clones. 13 versus 18. Yeah, Jay, I was going to do that and add the numbers on, but I think it's just easier sticking with day, dusk, and dawn for me at the moment. Otherwise, it'll get far too confusing. And if I mispronounce your name or your ID incorrectly, I do apologise, because I think I'm about to do that. Washbar, do you think Demerzel imprisoned the first Cleon or the other way about? Ooh, good one. Give me a second to think about that. Again, I'm going to have to go back and watch that scene from, I think it was episode 2 or 3, where you see the Star Bridge getting built. And I think it's the first time that you've seen... Was it the first scene of the first Cleon? Yeah, I think it was. Obviously, he popped back up later on, but we've just seen him in the glass casket kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of theories about the original Cleon. And if you weren't here last week, one of the things that I mentioned that I do find very odd and has bothered me since season 1 is, why does Brother Dusk never reach the same age as the original Cleon? Because he looks as if he's about 20 years younger. Oh, someone from Germany. Excellent. Jay thinks Cleon 1 and Demerzel have a plan. Interesting. Well, if you weren't here last week, I'll just give you a bit of a backstory on my backstory of Foundation is. I read the books over a decade ago now, and I went back and I read the first one after the first season, but then I didn't want to go and reread the others in case it ruined it for me. So I remember some stuff, I don't remember everything. From what I can tell, they're doing what Marvel does with their comics and just now borrowing things from the main story and adapting their own thing. So I don't want to concretely say that X, Y, and Z is going to happen, because it might not happen the way that it happens in the books, or it might not happen in the same order, or anywhere in between. If you've read the books, you know exactly what I mean. When I got to the end of season 1, I was like, okay, so they're changing some stuff. But anyway, guys, let's get into it. Just give me a little second. I'll get this all set up. Brilliant. Right, okay, so where are we? Let's talk about Tellum and our people, first of all. So with Tellum, yeah, a lot going on here, and she got a lot of focus in this episode. I mean, she's got a lot of focus on almost everyone, but I wouldn't say they've drip-fed us bits about her character, but certainly I think most people were wise enough to say, well, there's something not right about her. She's a bit too interested in Gale, and she was willing to obviously sacrifice Harry and potentially, well, it looked as if it was going to be Salvor there for a while, but obviously not. But yeah, Tellum, definitely one of the more interesting characters in the show this season. But when it comes to her people, do you think, because this is the picture that I've got on screen right now is obviously from that kind of, what would you call it, ceremony? Ritual? Where she was trying to do the body swap with Gale. And they really seemed on board with it, so it seems like this isn't the first time that they've witnessed this, or they expect it. But then part of me thinks, is she brainwashing them? Why wouldn't any... obviously she wants Gale for a particular reason, but say Gale and Salvor hadn't have arrived and Tellum's plan hadn't have worked and they hadn't been lured to Ignis, would one of these guys step forward and say, yeah, just take over my body and effectively kill me? So I think very interesting how, although we spent a lot of time in Ignis, it's very interesting how this society works. Again, if you were here last week, I kind of compared Tellum to sort of starting off as Professor Xavier and turning into Magneto, and I kind of think that that's the case. I do love the actress that plays her though. Rachel something, I can never remember her name. Hey, Gerard's here. Welcome back. I know you were here last week. We're just talking about Tellum. So if anyone's got any theories, any questions, any comments about Tellum specifically, now's the time. Also, one thing I wanted to bring up is, on the planet with her people, as far as I can remember, I might be wrong, but Gale and Salvor, excuse the sirens behind me, Gale and Salvor are the only two people there that seem to be related. I mean, I'm sure there's people, the mentalic or telepathic ability, whatever you want to call it, runs in families or is spread through genetics as well, but the way that I'm thinking that Gale might get out of this is something to do with her and Salvor combined. Because they've kind of not given Salvor much to do this season up until that episode. Or I kind of suppose the one before when she went looking for Harry, but yeah, Salvor's kind of been put on the back burner, at least if you ask me. But I suppose the big question we tell him, we've got to ask, is she the mule? What do you guys think? Again, there's a bit of a delay between me saying something and you replying it and me being able to see it in the chat. But I want to know, if you think she's the mule, type Y. Or if you think she could become the mule, type Y. And if you think she's not the mule, just type N in the chat for me. I'm also losing my voice as well, excuse me. Because I was reading some theories online and people seem really divided on this, that if she is going to go that way or not. And I've mentioned it in a few of my videos that did Gale and Harry and Salvor create the mule by essentially not creating the vision, but Gale having that vision? You know, is Tellum going to hear about this guy and think, well, that could be me in 140 years? Because it was the big thing as well that loads of people thought she was going to be, or the mule was going to be the little boy on the planet, and he was going to go through something like Polly, where either went to sleep or something happened where he didn't age for 100 years. But I don't think it's the boy. As I mentioned last week, if you notice the boy, is it Joseph or something like that? He's got a scar on his neck, and if you look at the mule, I've got a picture of him here somewhere. I should do. Where are we? If you look at the mule, he's not got the scar. And that's the best that I could zoom in and lighten that up. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, but I don't think he's got the scar. Is this still working? Because the chat has gone a little bit quiet. Can you still hear me, guys? Turn that around. There we go. Just going to check something. Give me a second. But if you can still hear me, let me know in the chat if you could, because the chat seems to have frozen or no one's talking. Which is fine. You don't have to talk. That's why I'm here. But yeah, with the meal thing, I don't know. If you've read the books, and I said this last week as well, he's not anything like what I was expecting. I was expecting something a bit more like the Joker. I was actually kind of hoping they would make the mule female, because I thought that would be really interesting, but I guess they're not going to. Well, if the mule is Tellum or Tellum is the mule, I suppose technically he is, and also he isn't. But, you know, it's your point of view, they're swapping bodies, whatever, who cares. I just think it would have been interesting. Because he's not that physically formidable in the books. He's just actually quite the opposite. But let's go back to Tellum then. But how do you think Gale and Salvor are going to get out of this? Do you think they're going to get out of it together? I mean, we've got 2 episodes left. I don't see it being a cliffhanger. And I obviously can't see Tellum taking over Gale's body. Maybe Salvor's. Because we don't really know what Salvor can and can't do, because I keep saying it, but she's not done a lot this season, sadly. So I hope that they give her something to do in the last 2 episodes, or at least set something up for her to do in the next season. Because I did read somewhere online, I don't know if it's accurate or not, that season 3 had already... I'm not sure if it had begun writing or it had begun production. I can't remember exactly where I've seen it. I think it might have been on Reddit or Twitter. But I think it's definitely probably going to get a 3rd season even, I should say. NY Jeans says, I can't believe she's actually evil. Really? She had really, really freaky cult vibes from... Well, not episode 1, but the first episode that she was in. So I knew she was up to something, but I thought she was trying to get Gale on her side and isolate her, which she was doing, but it was part of this whole body snatching thing rather than any other plot that we sort of could have seen. But yeah, come on, she's a not creepy, but she could be a little bit terrifying. She reminds me of, God, what's the character's name? Kathy Bates in Misery. Annie something is the character where she gets that writer and ties him to a bed for like a winter and keeps him there because it's her favourite writer. But yeah, definitely something creepy about her. But I just don't get how all these people are on board. I mean, was their life that bad that they decided to back this person rather than take their chances elsewhere? Because there have to be other. I'll call them telepaths rather than mentalics because I keep saying mentats and that's from June. There has to be other telepaths out there, surely, that just aren't allied with her. I mean, you think about it like the Star Wars way of, like, you know, there are people out there that use the Force, but they're not all Jedi, they're not all Sith. You just get people that are Force sensitive or whatever. So I think there might be more out there. Because one thing that the mule did say that I thought was fascinating, and I've got this in my notes, so give me a second, is when he was talking to Gale, he said, "You're mentalics." So does that mean that they're all on her side by that point in the future? Or does that mean that, you know, there's been a division in the mentalics or a division in Tellum's people or the people on Ignis? Because not everyone could come down on the same side. I thought that might be the case for the Spacers as well, that maybe not every Spacer would be on board with Hobor and Harry and the Foundation's plan. It might be a bit of a division. But what do you guys think? Is she going to be the mule? This episode or 100 and odd years from now? The only thing that kind of makes me sad about her whole body swapping thing is I really, really like the actress that plays her. I mean, I didn't think she'd be about for that long, and I didn't think when they arrived on Ignis that they were going to be there that long either, but yeah, Tellum has kind of been a slow-burning highlight of the season, but they should have done other stuff rather than just put them on Ignis, I should say, in like episode 3. I thought that was a bit of a letdown. Not a bit of a letdown, but they could have done more with it. You know, they could have explored the relationships with the people on the planet and learned a bit about their backstory, because other than Tellum and the kid and that guy that pretended to be Harry, whose name I can't remember, the guy that's got all his face kind of burned, we've not really spent time with anyone there. So I'm just think that's a little bit even of a wasted opportunity. But no one seems to be a big fan of Tellum at all. Okay, right. So let's see what else have we got this week. Again, I'm not going to cover every topic because I'm going to drop some videos during the week. But if you guys want to talk about anything in particular at the end, there's going to be a section for that. Don't worry about it. Excuse me. But let's talk about Trantor then. So Day and Seraph, a lot happening here as well. He seems to be on board with her plan. He's been left in charge of the planet. And you know, if her plan comes to fruition, he'll be in charge of the Empire, because he'll be Empire. He's just got to get his brother, and then his brother's copy, and then his older brother, and his older brother's copy out the way. So he's only got to kill 4 people. Not a lot in galactic stakes, but yeah, you've got to wonder when these guys, if, I should say, not when, because obviously they weren't in the books, if these guys start infighting and it becomes a kind of civil war, how's that going to go down? Because whose side would you take? Would you take, you know, Day? Or would you take, assuming that Dawn and Dusk team up, would you take those two? Because the thing, if they did decide to team up, is they're skipping, I'm not making this as a joke, but they're skipping out the middleman. So Dusk can say to Dawn, look, these are the mistakes that I made, these are the mistakes that they made, don't make these mistakes. Excuse me a second, there's a plane taking off behind me. And also I think something that's an interesting parallel between Dawn and Seraph is Dusk and Rue, because I didn't really think about it too much until this episode, because you get quite a lot of both of them. Is Rue's manipulating Dusk in the same way that Seraph is manipulating Dawn. So you've got to wonder, is Seraph copying Rue, or is Rue going off Seraph's plan?